Is no restart. Result. It's 800.
Welcome to the 3 Points and a Pie podcast, brought to you by the Pig and Pan Public House, Bermondsey. Sit back and listen to a few numpties chat all things football. Here's your hosts, Kyle Colson, Colby Stevens and Alfie Lauda.
Welcome to the 3 Points and a Pie podcast. I'm your host, Colby Stevens.
Kyle Colson.
And Alfie Lauda.
All right, guys, this week we're going to go into a little bit more in depth of the world crisis in Ukraine and how that is affecting the world in soccer. But just kind of preface to that, we are going to go over our Champions League matches and the top four Premier Leagues match. And also we're going to go over the Carabao Cup final. So let's go ahead and segue into our Champions League.
Okay, so this week I basically covered the Chelsea Lille and the dire performance at Atletico Man United. With Chelsea Lille, it was a good overall performance from both teams. I felt Lille, they stayed in it within the 90 minutes. They did that without kind of causing too many problems. Going off of their kind of stats and a little bit that I know about the French league that's been going on, they've been lacking a threat up front. I think if they'd have had a more attacking striker, I think it could have been a different game for Chelsea. It was really great to see Pulisic get on the score sheet. And I feel that Pulisic needed that game. He needed that game under his belt to cement his kind of place back in the team. I don't think he quite connects with Alonso. There was a lot of times where Pulisic, he would have been running into the space that kind of Alonso occupied. So instead of doing like a regular wing-backs overlapping runs, Alonso tends to, he does the run and then he just occupies that space, which you kind of see there's a couple of times where Pulisic, he didn't really know where to be, so he kind of drifted off central. But yeah, he had a really good game. I do think that Alonso I think this is the last season that we possibly will be seeing him at Chelsea. I think his defensive output, Pulisic got him out of a lot of crap a couple of times. And there was a few times within the game where he was getting a lot of glares from Thiago Silva, who basically he covered his arse. He comes across, he deals with a problem that Alonso should have been back there to deal with. But overall, it's a strong performance, and it will be interesting to see the second leg.
Yeah, I mean, what I for the little bit I caught of it, excuse me, it seemed like with Lille, Renato Sanchez wasn't really getting the feeds that he needed to actually make a valid attack, to make a strong attack. It was like he was just sitting up there by himself. And I really think that back to your like Pulisic deal, I think that it showed how he and Kai Havertz are kind of starting to work together a little better, and there's a better fluidity there.
Absolutely agree with that.
But yeah, I mean, Alonso, as a City supporter, I am anti that dude. But I mean, I just feel like his biggest threat is like a weird cracker deep, shot more than anything. I don't feel like he's worthy in defense, especially for some of the players that could be played.
He kind of stays up. He neglects the other half of the team. And I think that really interferes because like Pulisic is an out-and-out winger. I know that they've tried playing him up front. I don't think that's his strongest position. I think is a lot more effective with them bursting runs coming out of the wing. And with Alonso, I don't know whether he sees his own headlines. I mean, it's great that he does have the attacking instinct that he does, but I think he does it more as a lone wolf as opposed to actually a link-up play. Whereas on the other side to it, you've got like Reece James and Ziyech. They really cooperate well, the back and forth. With Alonso, there was just too many times in that game where he just holds that upper left third of the pitch, and then that kind of forces Pulisic or whoever that left winger is, he forces him inside, but you don't get that kind of give and go. He just kind of stays there, and I think it does break down a lot of plays. And if there is that quick turnover, then it tended to be Pulisic that would then run back to track and to sort out the problem, while kind of Alonso stayed up front.
Either way, it was a good match. I don't think that Lille came out of it upset. Obviously, going into the second leg to get 2 goals down is not choice, but anything can happen, and positivity from either side, but obviously mainly from Chelsea. Now, one of the more interesting, to start at least, matches was the Villarreal Juventus match. Obviously any match that starts with a goal in 33 seconds, that's a good kicker. Vlahovic is really coming out strong with Juventus. If you watch the match, that strike was pretty impressive, settling the ball and then just going pretty much directly across your body to go opposite corner. Really impressive. But then to me, it kind of felt like Villarreal went on the front foot, and it felt like Juventus, while they obviously still played a great game, I think that we saw more from the attack from Villarreal, which is interesting. I feel like we didn't see enough from Alvaro Morata, and what we did see was kind of unimpressive, which, to be fair, is kind of par for the course with that guy anymore. And Danny Parejo coming in the end and getting the equalizer, making it even up for that second leg is a big deal. And like I said, we also had Lo Celso go off the woodwork. It just felt to me like, while Juventus may have been kind of stronger, I feel like the attack itself was far stronger from Villarreal, whereas the defense, I guess you could say, was stronger from Juventus.
The capability of holding their form through the match without him.
Oh, I think they have plenty of players to cover that gap. I think that he's a great person to have in when you have him. But it's one of those things where, they have the depth to handle it.
Right. But do you think that maybe demoralized them a bit, where they could have ran away with the game a little bit more over Villarreal, where, that injury definitely may have brought them back a little bit?
I think that the tie itself is still pretty much on a knife edge, being that it's 1-1. I think Villarreal would definitely be coming out of that a lot happier. It's just whether they can put in a similar kind of performance at home to Juve. I think it would definitely interest a lot of Arsenal fans, considering the connections there with them missing out of Vlahovic. And also Villarreal being obviously coached by Unai Emery. I think he's definitely put a line under the EPL, and he's kind of remade his name back out in the Spanish league. But I don't think, even if Juve get past this next round, I can't see them going much further, I've got to admit. I don't think they're the team that they once were.
No, I don't believe that either.
Italian league, you mean?
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
All right, so
Villarreal took over to get the equalizer.
All right. Well, and to just finish the second portion of the round of 16 first legs, seems like there's been a bunch of it seems like this round was full of draws. We have the Benfica Ajax match and the Atletico versus United match.
Yeah, the Atletico Man United match. You could kind of say that pretty much any of the last 10, 15, probably 20 games Man United have played, it was pretty much the same old story. They overall they dominated possession without ever actually kind of troubling Atletico. And obviously the big headline there was Maguire. Even his future's kind of been called into question over that. They were definitely a different team once they brought on Malanga. I can't see, even if Man United managed to get past Atletico, they're out in the next round. It's been a very strange season for them, considering the history that they've got at the club. A club that's kind of given up on the league, kind of puts everything into Europe, but you're seeing the same flat performance, error strewn. But the one thing that Ranić was obviously brought in to do was to make sure that fourth spot. And even then, that's out of their hands now. Arsenal, with the 3 games that they've got in hand, it's going to be a major disappointment. And I think whoever comes in is obviously watching kind of performances in Europe, performances at home, and there's just no passion, no belief. There's nothing there, whether they're home or away.
Well, and just some key stats to focus on in that match. You know, United had 61% possession over Atleti's 39, and it seems like they controlled all that game, and they should have. You know, at a draw of 1-1, but I mean, it took Alanga up until the 80th minute to get that goal, where it took João Felix 7 minutes. You know, and I know that the separation in those goals from first half to second half, that's the difference of 2 games almost, in my opinion. But the way that it was played from United, it went front to back the same way as it has every single game for them, where they are always in possession. It looks like they could score, they're about to score, and then they don't.
Definitely. And I mean, I would love to have seen Suarez on earlier. I think it would have been perhaps a different game, because, I mean, he would have just terrorized Maguire. When you look at the players that they're putting out, I mean, Maguire, 80 million, the money that's been spent, crazy figures for quality that's there. I mean, could Maguire even walk in to another team that's in top 6, top 8? I don't think there's many clubs that would even touch him.
No, there's not. And he would have to take a massive pay cut, and I'm not really sure if that even works in the PL. But he would have to take a massive pay cut to go anywhere if he wants to stay even within the top 20 teams, because $80 million or 80 million pounds is not worth what he's producing. I mean, you can see when he's with the national team, he it looks like he's there to play.
Yeah.
But when he plays with United, it looks like, even with that armband on, like he doesn't want to fucking be there, or like he doesn't care. He's not sure what his place is on that squad.
That's something I would totally. It's like he doesn't know what his place is. Like, you know, with the national team, you got Stonesy there. Like you got a solid back line that can kind of cover his bullshit.
Yeah.
And it does help strengthen him at the same time. I don't want to just shit on United the whole time. I do want to, I think that there were some good points. I think that Jadon Sancho came through and had some good runs. But again, just finding the back of the net. And going back to the possession stats, when you have that level of a difference in possession, and they're still putting more shots on goal. I mean, not on goal, but putting more shots at you. 13-9 versus 1. I mean, and 1-2 versus on target. Like that's basically saying you're literally just holding the ball to hold the ball. There's no reason. There's no force with that holding the ball, and they gotta correct that if they do want to move on beyond Atletico. And like you're saying, Alfie, I don't know. I mean, anything can happen. It's Champions League, a little bit of luck, but I just don't know.
And I will say, to your point, Kyle, with United, and obviously we're not going to sit here and trash them the whole time, because they are a team. They are a very good and talented team. There's plenty of talent on that team to make them a top 4 team, and they are. But one of the things that I'm seeing in a lot of these matches is when they are getting down in the box and they are taking their shots on goal, it's like they're defeating themselves. If it's not banking off of a post, it's banking off of a player or being deflected by a player. It seems like it's always something. The talent's there. The resources there to create goals. It's just not being done. And I think that's something that Ralph needs to address in the coming weeks if they want to be a contender going into the end of the season.
Agreed.
It's hard to look at them as well with the players themselves. It's almost like they don't have a plan. Are they a counter-attacking team? Are they a pressing team? Because the players that are there, they're not there to press. He's trying to put square pegs into round holes, but the youth that's there, I mean, Jadon Sancho, across 90 minutes, he still plays with his heart. I would love to have seen him kept Amad Diallo. I think him with Elanga, they've got Lingard, that they still buy into the fact that they're playing for Man United. I think they've got too many players there that they've either got half an eye out of the door. The belief isn't there. And you've got Ralph Rangnick, I think, that's trying to force an ideal there, but he's giving mixed messages. I can't look at Man United and say they are this team, they are that team. It's almost like you can split the pitch between them. You've got midfield to back, midfield to front, and there's no connection at all. Yeah,
I totally see that. Totally see that. So now moving into our the last portion of the first leg, our Benfica versus Ajax match.
I mean, Benfica worked. You know, Ajax goes up, Benfica equalizes. Ajax goes up, Benfica equalizes. It's you know, with the way Ajax have been playing, I expected a different scoreline personally, but it says everything to the fight that's in Benfica. The switch, you know, leaving Portugal, going into that other stadium, I think that's going to be a different kind of thing. I think we're going to see like the weather and all that kind of thing affect them. But who knows? They really showed a lot of heart in that match.
Indeed. Alfie, do you have anything to add to that?
Just the fact that, I mean, I love the resurgence that I've seen in Ajax. With me being slightly older, I remember that the old Ajax team and the kind of fear that name used to install across Europe. It's great to see that resurrection in Dutch football that's coming back. I think that the biggest problem that Ajax is going to face is keeping the players that they actually bring through. If they can keep that squad, whether they get much further in this year's Champions League, I don't know. Going forward over the next couple of seasons, if they can keep that squad and maybe add to it, they will become a force again. It's just, again, whether they get picked off by Real Madrid, Juve.
Well, the problem with them that you run into is that like every time they get a good squad of young players, like what was it, 3 years ago in the Champions League? As soon as that season ends, they start getting offers, and instead of building a team, they're like, hell yeah, we're taking that fucking money.
Yeah.
And you know, like you have Frankie de Jong, like Nigel de Jong, Van de Beek, I mean, all those players came from that same squad. They went to the final that year, if I remember correctly. But you know, it was literally as soon as that ended and everyone had gotten to see them on that stage, it was like Barcelona's out there to buy and paying. And like, I mean, City were looking, but City weren't ready to pay that kind of money. Like Barca's throwing like 100, 150 and shit, and it's like, what the fuck?
It's a shame because a lot of those players that were kind of pulled apart from that team, they've like Van der Beek, Man United, a lot of their careers have fallen flat since then. Even like Ziyech, Chelsea, he's just now kind of finding his feet back again. It's a real shame when that happens, when a team does get pulled apart. And I think that's the biggest obstacle that Ajax are going to face is keeping those players.
3 Points and a Pie podcast, brought to you by the Pig and Pan Public House, Bermondsey.
This is Boris Johnson, hopefully still Prime Minister, and you are listening to the 3 Points and a Pie podcast.
Top 4 matches, especially this week, and we can definitely hit on the City Everton match and the bullshit that happened with that. Not that it was. I have 2 sides to that as a City supporter. But going into it, yes, there are, when we talk about our top 4 matches on this, we are not saying the top 4 teams. We were talking about the top 4 that we picked from the week to kind of go over that we felt needed to be a focal point. So moving on. Alfie, you'd like to lead us off on this?
Yeah, I picked out Arsenal Wolves. I've been a big fan of Wolves all season, and I felt that this game here, it was a make or break for Wolves for that 4th place. I think if they'd have taken the points off Arsenal, then it puts them back into that as the dark horse for that 4th spot. Having watched Wolves again or most of the season, I think that the thing that they've struggled with was obviously goals up front. I think if they could have kept Neto fit, I think with the way everyone else, Man United, Arsenal put a good run together recently, but what you would class as the big 6, big 7, no one's like really stamped 4th place. I think if Wolves had kept a really good striker fit, I think they would have run away with 4th basically. But I mean, it was a good game to watch in general. It's an old cliche, but it was a game of 2 halves. Wolves, definitely dominated the half. And that's where it comes back to goals. I think they went one up with the chances they had. If they'd have had that kind of clinical striker, they could have gone into the half, like 2, possibly 3 up, which with their defense, I think that would have taken the game away from Arsenal. But Arsenal obviously come out, what they've done, a lot of other games, they've kind of like switched it around in the second half, and they came around with the points. I do feel that a draw would have been a fair result, but it's definitely given Arsenal the kind of momentum to kind of to grab that 4th place. So, and I mean, going off of the games that they have won, they've put a good run together. So it's not something that they don't deserve. It would have just been nice to see Wolves pick up those points to actually stay in that, at least in that touching distance of 4th.
Yeah, and I mean, you didn't see that that game differential goal until 5 minutes after the 90, and that was Sa. They controlled a lot of the game. I mean, they gave up their first goals in the first 10 minutes. They controlled it all the way through, but we're having trouble getting into the box, it seems.
Well, I think it's a fair thing to note that, I mean, Wolves had a match 3 days later too. Like,
Yes,
so there's a level of lineup tweaking that you have to do there, or I mean, just deal with. And either way, you're kind of fucked either way, you know? And I think the fact they were able to still fight like that, and then just unfortunately having that own goal at the end, I mean, you know.
Which, to go on to what you were just saying there, as far as, what the way they needed to assimilate themselves for the coming week, and only having, basically a 2-day rest period between the match they had and the one they had later that week against West Ham. That didn't really fare well in their thinking, to be honest, when you look at the scoreline for the West Ham match. But to go back to Alfie's point, the Wolves are highly in that contentious pot for the number 4 between West Ham and Man United. And I honestly, man, and I think I talked to you about this at the beginning of the season. That was a team that I kind of looked at and I was like, I think they might be good. And then they started playing and I was like, all right, they're not too bad. And obviously it's, our story here. But they definitely have showed the promise of being at least a mid-table team, and not only surprise us to being in that spot to potentially be the 4.
As City fans, do you think Arteta's done enough at Arsenal to still be considered or looked at as Pep's heir?
You can't ask me that. You can't ask me that question because I hate Mikel Arteta's face, literally. And Kyle will tell you that, like, every time I see him, I just want to slap the shit out of him. So that's the really it's kind of a moot point into what you're saying. So, but also, like, I can't give you a fair evaluation on that guy. Kyle, I'm sorry.
But no, simple answer. If we see anybody come in, if it does happen that Pep's out at the end of this contract and he doesn't extend, which personally, especially if we win the league this year and maybe a couple other trophies, I think Pep's going to extend at least a couple more years. Beyond that, I think that we could actually see Vincent Kompany come back, and I would rather see him.
Not to go too far off topic what you said, Alfie, but if that would ever be the case, I certainly would see Vincent Kompany as being a viable replacement into that spot if Pep does not extend his contracts. But I firmly believe that he will. If he left the team in the state that it is, he's an idiot.
No, back to the point of Pep. Pep's always said, as long as I'm winning, and as long as I have the support of the fans, the team, and the back staff and all of that, I'll stay. But as soon as they don't want me here, that's what he said. So we'll see. I don't think that obviously already we're seeing Pep in a club that longer than he's ever been in a club. That bodes well for us. But as far as Mikel goes, he was a great assistant coach for us. That's what I have to say about that. I don't think that he's shown the ability to really handle the players that he has. And I do think that he's done a good job of recruiting, but beyond that, I don't think that he would be the choice if that was going to be up for grabs.
So moving on to the next match, let's take a look at that United Watford match. Let's give United the praise that they deserve. They possessed the ball for 67% of the match. But let me take a little something away from it at the same time. 22 shots, 3 on goal. First of all, guys, let's we're going to backtrack a little bit going into what we were talking about, the Champions League match. Let's talk about the state of United. I really am, just like Alfie said earlier, I'm kind of at an odds with the way United is playing this season, and with all the talent they have on the pitch, with all of the chances that they have had to score and have not translated that at all. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts?
I think it still needs to be said that, I mean, technically they're on an unbeaten run. You know, the whole Arsenal 3 friggin' matches in hand, that's a whole other thing. But I think that we're seeing some good things coming out of them. I think that what we really saw in that match was what we saw last weekend out of Watford. They are just so strong in holding their shape and just pissing off attacks. And just think that what Roy Hodgson's doing there is fucking great.
Yeah.
I don't think that I would really say either way about United right now, just because there are plenty of matches left, and fuck, we have them next weekend. So I don't really want to shit talk them that much because I'm not trying to put that shit into the universe. But yeah, I think that it really is more of a cheers to Watford than it is fuck you United.
Absolutely. I am, and Alfie, we'll get your take on here just after a second. I just want to throw out there that going back to the shots, shot attempts per the ones on goal, Watford had 10 shots, 2 on goal. I feel like it's pretty relative, statistically speaking, or percentage wise, to what United put up that day. But I also wanted to throw in there the last 4 matches that Watford and United have had. Ready for this? Draw, win, loss, draw.
So they've only lost 1 match against United in the last.
They have
4.
only lost 1 match against United in the last 4.
And that's basically living at the bottom of the table for now. We'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, exactly. Alfie, what do you got to say about this, man?
With this, I mean, with Roy Hodgson, you are always gonna know what you're gonna get out of a team managed by him. I think this, like, statistically and watching the match, this was a big test for Man United, not to get the 3 points because you would expect them to, but just purely how they deal with a team that's going to let them have the ball, let them come on, and then just keep that low block, keep their shape. And on a different day, this could have been 4 or 5-0, but it still comes back to the fact that Watford let Man United do whatever they wanted for 90 minutes, and Man United struggled to get over the line. And I think this really does play a big part in that there's something rotten there. I don't know if it's the management, the coaching, the players. There's something that's just missing in that loop. They should have walked this 4 or 5-0. Just going off of the numbers alone. Mm-hmm. But they couldn't. They didn't have it in them to just kill this game off. And previously, you know, that teams under Ferguson, they could play crap for 80 minutes. They give 10 minutes and they walk away 2-0, 3-0. You just feel with this Man United team, sometimes they could have the ball for 3 or 4 hours and they just don't know what the hell to do with it. Mm-hmm. They don't know who to feed it to. They don't know who to get it to. You've got Ronaldo, who's a massive personality up front, but Ronaldo plays for Ronaldo now.
Exactly. He's an ego more than a personality at this point.
Yeah. And you've got the youth coming through. For Man United to evolve, they need to chop a lot of wood away.
They really do. And even to further that, just to go into my last point on this match so we can go into our next one, what to do. And this question is going to get raised all season until it's over, until it's done. What to do with Ralph? What do you do with Ralph after the season?
I think that they need they need a manager who is going to actually put in a system and work it. I think that even with Solskjaer, you weren't really seeing a system. You were just seeing a formation. And then, Mourinho before that and all that, like it's all just kind of counter United mentality, if you ask me. Like, the old, that Sir Alex Ferguson style where like basically balls out, let's just fucking attack. And you don't, and that might go to the ability of the club more than the manager, I guess. But I think that we can all agree that they have plenty of fucking talent on there and that they should be able to make something work, but there's no system to consistently follow throughout the match. And that's where they just get lost and kind of fumble around like fucking idiots.
I completely agree with that. And I think that kind of goes into our last week's episode, what we were talking about with United. All the pieces that they have up front, between Bruno Fernandes, Jadon Sancho, Cristiano Ronaldo, Fred, pick everybody you want to from the front seven of that pitch. They're all able to do work. They're all able to produce, and they do not, because they're all trying to get their own. They're not trying to make the extra pass. They're not trying to do the things that they need to do to create a whole play rather than just trying to create one for themselves. All right.
Well, we'll see what happens. We got the Derby coming up. So
you have the Derby this weekend.
Watford have Arsenal, so that's going to be a good one too.
Big Derby weekend, guys.
And
so let's move into our next match. Let's touch on this Everton City match. Lot of scandal that goes into this one. Kyle?
Yeah, obviously, the main thing that needs to be taken away from it is Everton play their fucking asses off. Like, we win at them and win at them and win at them, and they absorbed. And two players that I thought were going to be pretty much fucking useless for this match were some of the best players in the match, if you ask me. Like, Iwobi played his fucking ass off. And some really, really, really key saves from Pickford. Now,
yes, there were huge saves from him, by the way. And Alfie, with us both being the City supporters that we are, I think that we can both sit here and tell you that we will play fair play, and as well as our audience will play fair play when it comes to our matches. Jordan Pickford had a fucking game. He showed up, and it was brilliant to watch.
Yeah, that double save from Foden and then Cancelo, or like however that worked out.
Yeah.
And then it literally took like a scuffed fucking weird shot from Foden to do anything. Everything shit hits the fan, and we don't know what VAR is doing. The rules are what? Sleeve doesn't count anymore, so that's kind of what I saw as what the Pigmole were saying. I don't know.
It's that. Well, here's the thing: the sleeve is part of the fucking arm. Okay, the arm is technically. I as far as I've ever known the game from when I was a kid, that's how you fucking play. If it hits your fucking arm, doesn't matter. It has to be from the ball joint down. That is a handball.
Yeah, and you can chest it and put your arms out to try and chest it, but end of the day, well, okay. So my thing is, and I feel like, well, even on NBC Sports here, the immediate thing they said was, oh well, Richarlison was offside in the buildup, and I was like, okay, I see that, totally makes sense now. And then after that, like, the Premier League released the statement, or somebody released a statement saying that it was just not a handball because it was on the sleeve. And I'm like, well, that muddles the water way worse. Why not just go back to that actual fucking offside and just
right.
But I mean, I guess that's even debatable. So who knows? My stance on it is City have had a shit ton of calls not given to us. So I'll take this one given to us.
Absolutely. That's something I can definitely agree with. I mean, and the way that it looks though to the rest of the world is City's the big dogs. They got away with one. Well, yeah, we did.
I think they've muddled it so much with VAR because in the pre-VAR, it was all done by eye, obviously. But with the technology that we've got, that they need that specific line. They need that specific metric for VAR to even work. And I think they've created more problems to one extent than solved them. I think the game just hasn't caught up to VAR rule-wise yet. I think we're still 2 or 3 seasons away from them actually working out a lot of the little ruffles.
I think it comes down to the definition. There just needs to be a flat definition of what certain rules are, especially when it pertains to VAR. I don't feel like there is.
And that's
it's all subjective.
They're continually changing the metric for handballs. And it's like, where does it fucking end, you know? And that's what really needs. And I'm sorry, but like Everton coming out and asking for an apology, fuck out of here.
Yeah.
I mean, but in all honesty, to go into the officiating crews with this, there has to be some sort of penalization that goes into it. I said this last week. I'm going to say it this week. I'm going to say it every week. Some shit happens. There needs to be some repercussions to these officiating crews. Yes, they issued a statement of an apology to Everton, but this is your fault. You literally changed the momentum of a match just by one call, and now just an apology is enough? No. I'm sorry, that's not enough in my book. You look, and yes, there are penalizations to these officiating crews or these officials, but at the same point in time, like we're me and Kyle, I feel like we're gonna constantly reference other sports outside of football, and specifically attaching American football to European or world football. When you get officiating crews over here on American football, they fuck up now. They get fucking punished. They like in some of the stipulation rules, especially for the playoff officiating crews going into the Super Bowl, and they alternate crews depending on what game series they end up officiating. So if you are in the Super Wild Card round, you'll more than likely end up in the divisional round. If you do get in the divisional round, you end up being in the Super Bowl. But even just this past year, there were several bad calls in several of the games throughout the wild card and the divisional round. And those officiating crews, I'm not exactly sure which game it was, but there was an officiating crew from a wild card round that was not allowed to go into the conference round because of a bad call that they made that actually changed the tide of a game. And I think that needs to be implied with FIFA and UEFA. They need to start doing better with these officials and reprimanding them for what they've done, because specifically, like I said, in this match, I feel like it changed the tide of the way things were going because Everton was playing a fucking hell of a match against us.
That's how it goes.
It is.
But before, I mean, we would see matches every single week where an offside goal is allowed or whatever.
Yep.
And at least we're getting somewhere toward the right side of that, but there's still a long road. All right. So the last match of Premier League wrap up was a doozy for a London side and not for another. So.
And what match are you referring to?
Tottenham Leeds.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, we need to go in. We do need to go into this. There's a lot of things that go on with Leeds this week.
Yeah, it was another good showing that we're starting to see that train getting traction of Harry Kane and Son working together, where they're really starting, and Kulusevski is really mixing into that really nicely.
Yes.
The other side of that coin is what the fuck was going on at Leeds. obviously now new manager. I hope Bielsa finds another job really quickly, because that guy is still like a proper fucking manager, in my opinion. I just think that it just doesn't work with Leeds.
Well, where was the breakdown? I guess that's my question that I have to this, not to push into what you were saying, but what was the breakdown with Bielsa and Leeds that led to him sacking?
I would say defense.
Solely?
I mean, they've conceded more goals than any other club in the Premier League. And if I remember correctly, like Bielsa's main structure is kind of like a man-on-man marking setup. Whereas now with Jesse Marsch, you're looking at more of like a zonal setup, and I think that could help him more. I mean, they have some good defenders in there, so we'll see. But
Alfie, what's your take on it?
I think with Bielsa, I think he reached a point where he couldn't take that team any further. I think the 2 to 3 seasons that he was there, the last season they took the EPL by storm. The energy that they used to press with, but I think this season you got the second season syndrome. I think a lot of people kind of worked out that if you kind of weather that little storm for the first few minutes, you could catch them break, you could catch them. They tended to have that high line, and I mean teams just scored for fun against them. They become the league's whipping boys.
Well, and you take Patrick Bamford out of that equation for so long, and that takes away a lot of the scariness of that. I'm really interested to see what Marsch does with him. I'm really interested to see how Premier League supporters treat Jesse Marsch.
Well, they're already calling him Ted Lasso, from what I've heard.
Oh, that's fun.
And sorry, Alfie, but apparently that's the most common reference ever since that series has come out for anybody who has anything to do with European football that's American. When it comes to coaching, they just automatically call him a Ted Lasso. It is. It's a great series. Check it out if you have Apple.
Just good TV.
If you have Apple TV Plus, go check out Ted Lasso.
Yeah, we're not actually paid for this.
Jesse Marsch is coming in, and he's coming off of the back of a good career as a manager. But he's now going to be held to a higher standard than a manager that was coming in that was either Italian or German or
rightfully
French. So. And I mean, I know that Bob Bradley, when he was at Swansea, he didn't exactly set the world alight. But it's just shitty that you're getting professional pundits that are kind of making references to the fact, well, Marsch has never managed in England. He's never managed in the EPL. And it's like, yeah, but you don't say that with every manager. I mean, Marsch, he did his badges up in, I believe, Scotland. He's managed in Germany numerous times. So although he played his career mainly in the entire career in the MLS as a manager, he's been schooled in European football. And it just sucks that he's coming in and right off the bat, he's being held to a higher standard than a lot of other managers would be if they took that spot.
Yeah, and to the point of, you haven't managed in this league, and that must, you're going to have trouble. Well, Pep didn't manage here. Like, how many managers started in the Premier League and did well? I'm not saying that he's fucking Pep, but I mean, he did well enough with Leipzig, and I mean, I think that he has a really good chance here. I think it's a club that's begging for something different.
Going off of like some of what I've read about Marsch and seeing a couple of the teams that he played, I remember he was managing, I believe, New York Red Bulls when Chelsea went out to the States on a tour, and they beat us. But ignoring all the other kind of noise that went around it, he plays a similar brand of football to Bielsa. I just think they're going to be a lot better organized. And I think everything that they do is going to be with purpose. A lot was made of Bielsa's his training, how hard he trained them players. Well, yourself, if you if you work your bollocks off on a Monday, you're kind of fucked on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So if you've got a couple of training sessions where like he's running you to death, come Saturday, over time, your output's going to drop. It's going to drop. It's going to drop because you're getting that burnout. And a big difference between him and Bielsa, I think, is just going to have a lot more purpose to what he does with the team.
Well, only time will tell, but hopefully, shell of a club that is Leeds right now, from what we're saying, from what we've been seeing from them, hopefully he can bring that soul back. But we'll see.
You see Tottenham.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah.
Beat City, lose against Burnley, hammer Leeds, lose against Middlesbrough.
And I mean, Middlesbrough, we'll touch on that later. But they, we've seen it with the Premier League. They can put up a fight, but fuck. I mean, there's talk of Conte out.
I don't really think that's cool that they're gonna that's even in a conversation. This is his first season at Tottenham. He's gonna need another season, at least maybe two, for that whole unit to congeal and be able to be more on a winning streak than where they're at right now, because they're just it feels like they're just finding their legs right now.
Welcome to the 3 Points and a Pie podcast, brought to you by the Pig and Pan Public House, Bermondsey.
Hello, this is Jamie Carragher, and you're listening to the 3 Points and a Pie podcast.
Now we're going to go into the big story of this week, and that is the crisis in Ukraine and how that is affecting football. I think first kind of go and touch on the Abramovich statement that was released.
He said mixed reviews. I think on the one hand, without Abramovich actually condemning outright Russia's aggression, it's been taken as that he's just protecting his interests financially. As a Chelsea fan, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard not to love Abramovich. I know there's a lot of people out there that are object to that with all that's going on, but we have such a knee-jerk reaction in society now, where you've got Labour MPs and House of Commons coming out and ripping Abramovich a new one. There's not been a clear-cut ton of proof that Abramovich is involved that much with Putin. Chelsea fans' perspective, if there was concrete proof, by all means, seize everything, do everything that you need to do. His statement, it's almost like lip service. It's come across as lip service. It's enough to distance himself from the club without actually condemning anything. I think he would have done a lot better with a more in-depth statement rather than just how he's handing over to the board of trustees without actually saying a definite thing. But
and that leads me into a couple of the questions that I had about this portion of our segment. And you kind of touched on that with just what you said. Was that statement a little too little from his perspective, and what he's producing out to fans and supporters and just people in the football world who are, obviously on this subject? Was that too little of a statement for him to make, being that what his interests are and pertaining and what his ties are to Russia and Vladimir Putin? And is that enough? I don't think it's enough. But now on the other end of that, there are things that are being said about how he is going to be a potential medium in talks between Ukraine and Russia, and using him kind of as an advocate or whatever. Do either one of you know what his aside from him just being an oligarch in Russia, what his status is with Vladimir Putin? And do you think that he could potentially have any persuasion, considering Abramovich's perspective on it and how it is diminishing the Russian Federation and their ability to play sports beyond football, and even with just in football in general.
I don't know if anybody could get through to him right now.
But do you honestly think do you think that honestly that statement was enough in the sense that for him to be speaking as a Russian, do you think that he could have said a little bit more and saying, you know, this isn't something that I personally agree with, or you know what, or do you think because of his heavy tie to Vladimir Putin and being just in general a Russian, the level of loyalty that he's not really ready to relinquish a lot of those kind of words, so therefore he made less of a statement? Or do you think it's just that he was saying something just to smooth it over in the moment?
Well, I mean, you know, he's an oligarch. He's
right.
He's up there. Like he's actually still, you know, from, you know, the USSR type shit, you know, like right. It's a whole other thing. And it's not like he's some hockey player or, you know, some footballer who is a Russian, you know,
right.
compatriot. He's a guy who holds a lot of fucking power, and kind of like what you saw with Trump when a lot of the crazy shit was going on with Trump. There were plenty of business people who were tied to him who were like, I'm not going to really say anything right now because I'm not really trying to, you know, fuck my life up.
Right. Conflict of interest type ideal.
Yeah. And I think that that's really what we're running into with him. And I just think that, I mean, I wish that he would come out and damn Putin for what he's doing. We're not going to see that.
I mean, without getting too political, we're not putting troops into Ukraine at this point. They're talking about sending out, you know, the aid and everything. With them approaching everything from a financial perspective, those Russians that do have massive financial interest in England, in Europe, these could be used as links to the upper authority in Russia, as opposed to just condemning them and doing a bit of a witch hunt. With Abramovich having massive ties to England, who's Zamenhof with Everton, these are high-ranking Russian billionaires that they could be that little link between the two. The harder that they push, the more that they're going to make everything to do with Russia just seal shut. If Abramovich and everyone else, if they pull out and they head back to Russia, you're closing down all communication links, everything in every way. And I just think that there's a lot of people at the moment with this knee-jerk reaction that are trying to attach their name and to make their political career out of it all. I just think that time to talk, and we are still at that stage. They're not putting troops in. But going back to your point, I do agree that it did come across as just a lip service statement. It was just enough and no more. And I think that's what you're getting the backlash to Chelsea and Tuchel in every interview he's been given. They're continually asking about Abramovich, Russian ties. And I mean, the guy's there to manage a football team. You know, to a degree, he's not a PR representative, if not a representative of the club. He's a representative of the team. And I think they should be talking a lot more to Abramovich himself as opposed to just...
Yeah, like what's a player going to do? Say, oh, fuck you, guy who's paying me, you know?
Right. Who says that to their boss?
Yeah.
Exactly, you know? So there were three national teams that have come out and publicly stated they will not play Russia in the World Qualifiers, that being Poland, Sweden, and the Czech Republic. Robert Lewandowski released a statement stating in regards to Russia invading and and how he doesn't feel that it belongs here in football. Them canceling out, he says, it is the right decision. I can't imagine playing a match with the Russian national team in a situation when armed aggression in Ukraine continues. Russian footballers and fans are not responsible for this, but we can't pretend that nothing is happening. Absolutely right. Leza also wrote that no more words, time to act. Due to the escalation of the aggression of the Russian Federation towards Ukraine, the Polish national team does not intend to play the playoff match against the Republic of Poland, Russia. This is the only right decision. We are in talks with the Swedish and Czech federations to present a common position to FIFA. What are you guys' takes on that?
I think there's been a lot stronger words coming out of football than there has been coming out of a lot of political leaders. Even to this day, like as we sit here now, because I mean, news is changing so fast. There's still countries that are still sitting on the fence. I think football's been a lot more clear and a lot more defined in what they've said. Even to the point with UEFA, I mean, I've always kept a half eye closed with UEFA purely because of the financial. They always put the finance above everything else.
Yeah.
FIFA, the same thing. The World Cup in Qatar, even the World Cup in Russia. I mean, you know, the massive corruption going on. It gets found out. Everybody kind of shrugs their shoulders, and it's like, well, you know, we've already printed the business cards. It's got to go ahead. But it was really nice to see from UEFA themselves, where they've cut ties with Gazprom, they've cut ties with Aeroflot, and I think one of those deals was for like $85 million-ish, and it's nice to see that support. I mean, immediately as soon as this all happened, I mean, the game with Man City, I had tears in my eyes with Zinchenko. I mean, that was a really heartfelt, wonderful moment, and it's great to see the unity behind everything going into this. I think that there's a lot of politicians that could take a lot of leaf out of professional sports world.
Yeah.
That gave me goosebumps thinking about that. Like
it really does, man.
Seeing their eyes and
seeing Zinchenko and Michaelenko's eyes in the pre-match and even post-match, just the level of gratitude that came with those tears. Moreover, you know, you knew those tears weren't just gratitude; they were also hurt for their fellow countrymen, and that really hit me in my heart. That pulled my heartstrings so hard. I can't imagine, and I don't think either one of us, and I think that we can all three of us can agree to this, living in the countries that we do, we feel almost privileged because we have yet to see war on our own soil. And then knowing that is happening on his, and he's not there or able to do anything. And I think that also speaks along with the rest of the world, where we don't feel like there's a lot that we can do just by our words alone, and we can't. But believe it or not, I think that those words do make a difference. You know, us calling out for no war, us saying this is an absolutely senseless act of control and greed.
And you know, as much disdain as a City supporter as I will continue, and I doubt will ever end, I have for UEFA and FIFA, what they've done in the wake of this in the last week or so is, I mean, it's a move in the right direction. You know, pulling Russia from the World Cup, pulling the Champions League final, like they're, you know, taking money away from them is the best way to do this. Right. And, you know, I hope that, well, the best way, at least for, you know, football sanctioning bodies to affect it, I hope that it does something. Like, you know, with Zinchenko, he had that statement where I don't know, I think it was on Instagram or something. And he essentially said, we demand from the International Sports Society, 1, exclude Russia from all sports international governing bodies. That seems reasonable, but again, the ties and the communication that you were talking about, Alfie, I don't know how far they can go with that. 2,
Formula One, actually, just to break up real quick, Formula One has already put that to bed, because they're basically saying, we're not going to, just because of this is going on, we're not going to let one driver not be able to drive because this is happening. So Nikita Mazepin is still able to drive within Formula One as a Russian driver. What they're doing, and this is something, and I'll let you finish here, what they're doing is they're allowing these specific drivers, players, whatever it may be, to fly, or excuse me, sanction themselves under this a specific flag, or a unifying flag, I should say, which I thought was really cool. And I think that that's something they should look into, especially when it comes to Russian athletics and sports stars. Because if you look at hockey, if you took out every Russian player in the National Hockey League, you'd lose the National Hockey League.
No, you'd lose the best goal scorer in the National Hockey League.
Well, right, but we're not going to go into your bias. We're not going to go into your bias here about another sport. We're talking about the fact that this is literally, you would literally wipe out one sport entirely just because of somebody's nationality. I think that that's a little bit crazy.
Well, and that first note is really more about the involvement in the governing bodies, whereas the second note is more on to your point where he's saying ban any Russian athletes from participating in any international competitions.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that, I mean, I'm an American. If America went to war, does that mean like I can't play in my sport? You know, like I didn't make that decision. So that's where I get a little hazy on that. I think that's the biggest thing is these people aren't making those decisions. So to deny them that right, I feel like is wrong.
Right.
His third point is stop the sale of rights of broadcasts of international sporting competitions to Russian media. And yeah, just cut them off. And like that's just going on with everything that we're saying. Cut the money. And really, if you take away their ability to view all this stuff, because even Premier League in Russia is huge, and like you take away that and you're gonna have some pissed off people. 4, prohibit Russian companies from being sponsors of international competitions and clubs. We're already seeing that with Gazprom.
Yep.
You know, and like some of those other companies. So that's great. Again, take the money away from them. 5, and probably the biggest thing, support Ukraine with information. Join to sharing true information about actions of the aggressor countries. And the fact that because Russia is such a big body and the power that they hold, it's easy to overlook Ukraine. But I think most of the world looks at Ukraine in this, especially in this situation, as the underdog that we want to support, because we've seen what Russia,
when they're all lined up in formations
caravans
and stuff like that, whatever, in caravans, that were running out of gas, that are unable to get to their drop points or wherever. And these Ukrainian cameras are literally blowing up their stuff, which is great. So it makes that little guy, you know, that we're rooting for, like when I saw that, I was like, fuck yes, they're doing something about it. That does not say that Russia doesn't have the money. They have not put their full force into all of this. So it's still very, very scary as to what can happen there.
and again, to try and bubble ourselves from getting too political and too
Right. No, I thought that was a really funny thing to pull up.
Yeah.
Just to be contrary on it, because we have so little hope in what's going on over there. I when I saw that, you know, that little glimmer, I was like, oh my God, yes, get them. Alfie, do you have anything to add to this, bud? I feel like we've kind of cut you out on most of this.
No, I just hope that Chelsea isn't now completely and utterly associated with a Russian aggressor. I think that there's enough. Abramovich did enough good as well. He's plowed billions into our economy, London especially. He's done a lot of the anti-Semitic. We've kind of been
He's Jewish.
The forefront for all that. I just hope that this war doesn't wipe all that away, and then people have that memory of what it is now, basically.
I think that in order for that to happen, though, it's a matter of the actions that he takes during and after this crisis is happening and concludes. What he's done to this point, we've all agreed that it's a bit lackluster.
Definitely.
And it could have been a bit more. moreover, just to save his name. And so he's not going to save the Chelsea's name. Chelsea's name is established. Chelsea supporters are going to stay Chelsea supporters, are going to stay Chelsea supporters forever. That's one of the beautiful things I love about European football or world football together, is the loyalty that goes into these these clubs. So I really don't ever see that being a problem. What I do see being the problem there is what actions he takes from here up until the end of this.
Apart from another statement, what would you like to see from him? What do you think could be his next steps?
He kind of, also from what I've seen, he's also kind of, blew his piece of being a median in talks between Ukraine and Russia at this point. He kind of sat back, and that was something that I had referenced off of ESPN FC. He kind of sat back and did a whole lot of nothing. So obviously, I mean, to see more, if you really want to see the state of the world be in a better place, beyond football, be the bridge that gaps all of that. If you're an oligarch, or if you're somebody who is high up in the Russian government, and you have that strong pull, I think it's your duty, as somebody who is a person in the world, to make sure that this nonsense stops in some way, shape, or form. If you have a way of helping it, I think you need to do it.
I don't know how much more he can do without having the wrath of Putin. Yeah,
overstepping a boundary. I completely understand that.
These are crazy times, and I think the whole world is a little scared. But obviously, Ukrainians are very, very fucking scared.
And just so you know, anybody who's listening here from Ukraine, we stand with you. We support you. If there was anything that we could do in the world right now, aside from sending our governments over and nuking the fuck out of Moscow, which we don't want that to happen either. We want the world to be at peace. So, but regardless, our support is behind you, and we stand with you. All right, guys. Well, I believe that concludes up our week. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening, and we look forward to having you back again next week.
That wasn't too bad, was it? Now it's time for you to do a little work and click like or follow. And if you really got some life left in you, then leave a comment or review. That's me done. Got me driver waiting.